We are here at Meridian Hall, ready to see SkyFall in concert. We've got a lot of surprises for you today. We're not only going to be talking about some of the attendees of SkyFall in concert. When I say in concert, I mean this is a live orchestra playing with the movie. It's like nothing you've seen before. It's an immersive moment, and we get to see it in our fineries. But before we do that, we're actually also going to be speaking to Evan Mitchell, the conductor. Then we're going to talk to some people about what they thought about that, and you may recognize some of those individuals. But first, let's go chat with the conductor. All right, we are here with Evan Mitchell, conductor extraordinaire, if I may say. So thank you so much.
It's very kind of you.
Well, first of all, I've got to ask you a very simple question right off the bat. It's almost a cliche to ask if you're a Bond fan, but how much of a Bond fan are you?
I'm a Bond fan, I would say. I am certainly not a Bond fan to the degree of which many of our audience members, I think, will be here tonight. Yep. So if you ask me some Bond-related questions and I equivocate or I punt a little bit, my apologies. But I feel reasonably qualified to answer many of those sorts of questions. So I'd consider myself a fan. Yes, okay. A fan, but not a fanatic. Let's say.
Yes, and I'm not even going to put my category in there because you wouldn't have done this interview. But so I've got to ask a simple Bond question. What is your favorite Bond movie? The one that you pick off the shelf from time to time?
Oh boy, I mean that's really tough. The series has evolved so much since the beginning. I think that's a really that's a challenging question. So I'm going to dodge a little bit. Yeah. So I'd say like from the Goldfinger, obviously a classic. I suppose that's the easy answer. On Her Majesty's Secret Service is actually, I think, one of the very strongest films, with some elements notwithstanding, from the modern age. Let's say from Brosnan onwards. Mm-hmm. GoldenEye is great. The rest of the Brosnan films, maybe not so much. But I do think Casino Royale and Skyfall really, cement Daniel Craig as one of the true iconic Bonds. And so, I mean, I would say if I had to pick one, it would probably be Casino Royale. Just because I thought that was such a monumental introduction to Daniel Craig as James Bond. But Skyfall's killer. I mean, what a film.
Skyfall is killer, and so it's a great segue because I want you to take us into that whole opportunity where did somebody call you? And I know you've been a conductor for some time. In fact, I've done my research. You were one of the hottest young conductors, and now are you scraping to 40 yet, or are you there?
Let's see. Let's say I'm scraping.
Okay.
Scraping is fair.
He's much younger. It's fine. But all of a sudden, somebody must have said, hey, would you like to do Skyfall? Or Skyfall's on the docket. But what exactly does that look like?
So I have had the good fortune to do many of these film scores live in concert. So I've become a pretty experienced conductor of this genre of concert. And there's nothing particularly about them as a conductor that any conductor couldn't do. You just need to sort of, you need to be familiar with the technical aspect of it, first off. Secondly, you have to reprioritize your priorities so that priorities number 1, 2, and 3 are stay with the film, stay with the film, stay with the film. The great thing about doing these is that it's very consistent. It's always the same. The bad part of that is that the film does not care if you're ahead or behind. So you just have to be relentless in the pursuit of that sort of absolute perfection of frame perfect synchronization. So when I had done a couple of those a little earlier in my career, I felt as though it was the sort of thing that it worked well for me. I had an aptitude for it, and people recognized that, and I've been asked to do more of these since my early years of having done this. I've been doing, I guess, films live in concert for about 5 or 6 years now. And I've ended up doing quite a bit of them. Of course, when we did Casino Royale a few years back, that was me as well. And now onto Skyfall. So I think at least in this particular neck of the woods, should there be a presentation like this, I'm certainly someone who they will consider calling.
That's fantastic. We're very lucky for that. And I've got to.
So am I.
Yeah. Well, I was astounded by the fact that as the uninitiated, we think you're just looking up at the screen. It's like, okay, gang, ready and go. And it's certainly much more technical than that.
Yes. It absolutely is. I mean, there's the most challenging thing about these musically, in my estimation, is that it's actually harder for the orchestra to do this live in concert than it would have been for the studio sessions. Because in the studio sessions, you're only looking at a couple musical cues per per morning or afternoon service. There is a union limit on how much you can actually record per day. And so many of the sections, what that turns into is in the film, they're quite often long sections in which the players don't get a break. They would have when they were recording it simply because they would have done this cue and then the next cue and so on and so forth. But we just get one kick at the can, no breaks, we play when we're supposed to play. And it's really like a tightrope walk. It's really a feat of endurance and focus and strength and ability. So this is, in my estimation, one of the harder things that depending on the score, of course, but that lots of our musicians will ever do is just the relentless pursuit of recreating this live right in front of you.
It's amazing, and you started to talk to us about the process, even the rehearsal process. Could you jump into that a little bit more, a little deeper?
Sure. So I get my own specially prepared version of the film, which is used for my reference. It's a chaptered video that has all of the original dialogue, sound effects, pre-recorded elements, the music, and in some cases a click track for a robot to tell me exactly where the beat is, beating in my ears. I have some software that allows me to mute some of those channels so I can listen to everything all at once, or I can listen to just the music, for example. My process is to start with everything and then to gradually eliminate dialogue, sound effects, and then eventually music. I know that I know the music very well when I can do a whole run to absolute silence and feel as though I know where I am and what everything should sound like, and I don't get remarkably ahead or behind. As for the musicians, they get their specially prepared parts that have all the music that they're going to be playing for the violinists or the flutists or whatnot. And then when it comes to the rehearsal time, they sit in their chair. For this one, a couple of people also have click tracks. Our rhythm section has a click track, some of the percussion as well, and the piano. But most of the orchestra is just really relying on the baton. And so they don't even have the benefit of seeing the film. Actually, the people who are behind the screen, there is a big black shield behind the screen. It's not to make sure they're not distracted. It's because it means the projection is better, is punchier for the audience, but it means that the musicians behind are not even able to see it sort of backwards and through the screen. All they have to rely on is just each other and the baton, and off we go. I mean, it's an amazing orchestra. It's some of the best professional musicians in the area, so we just make it happen.
That is fantastic, and I never want to focus on the negative, but is there ever a mishap where something, you've got to kind of reacquaint yourself?
Well, it's live music.
Yeah.
Things happen. I can't recall. I'd be very happy to tell you the craziest things that have ever happened to me for a film score live in concert. But actually, to a great testament to all the players on stage, nothing has really ever happened. One time I believe I did a Jurassic Park, the 1993 Jurassic Park, and I was just deathly ill with the flu. And I flubbed, this was my mistake, I made a mistake with the time signature. I beat one too few beats in a bar, so my pattern might have thrown some people off, but it was just fine, and it happened early enough on in one of the simple cues that I, afterwards when it was done, it was a 30-second little incidental thing, and I just said to myself, Evan, pull yourself together. This is the easy stuff. You gotta, you gotta be on top of it for when the Raptors start running around, that's when it gets really hard. So I pulled myself together, and then I slept for 3 days afterwards. So, amazing. But it's live music. I mean, that's both, it's perilous, but it's also a remarkable experience as a result.
It's got to be thrilling. And by the way, nothing is going to go wrong in the next 2 nights.
No,
nothing's going to go wrong.
Nothing's gone wrong in rehearsal. I mean, we've, to touch wood, we've had a great process. So
that's fantastic. Now you're known, and there's some great videos up on YouTube of being a very passionate conductor. There's conductors that kind of sit there, and there are ones that kind of sway to the music, and you see it on their face. You're one of those passionate conductors. With all the technical aspects, can you still enjoy the music?
That's a really excellent question. Again, you have to be subordinate to the synchronization above all, in my opinion. With a film like this, with SkyFall, with Casino Royale, these, generally speaking, with the action films, there are an awful lot of changes that happen, and there's a very small window of accuracy. That something will happen, and there'll be a particular sound effect, or you'll get to a particular high point in the music, and that's when there's a smash cut in the film. The one that comes to mind here, actually, there's of course the sequence, spoilers for anyone who haven't seen the film, but there's the sequence in the Macau casino in which Bond is fighting Severine's bodyguards, and they're trying to, there's the Komodo dragon and all that, and so he basically pops up, but there's someone on the floor who's pointing a gun at him, and then comes Moneypenny for the save. Yeah. And so there's a couple of like smash, and a kick, and that all happens with bam. bam, bam with the music. So you want to be very close there. So particularly in moments like that, to answer your question eventually, those are more focused for me. Right. But there's a couple, for example, the scene with Bond and Severine on the yacht. It's a very short cue, but it's right before they go off to the island. That's one in which there's more room for it to be expansive. Those are a little fewer and further between in these Bond films. So those are the points in which I feel like I can really enjoy myself the most. But it's still a lot of fun to be able to, to be able to lead an orchestra that's literally just relying on a stick, to be able to keep in time with picture for 2 hours, it's a remarkable thing. So I always leave these feeling like a rock star.
You are a rock star, and it's very poetic. And first of all, thank you so much. I mean, it should be said that you literally just came from rehearsal, came right up here to talk to us. So thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
And now we're actually going to go and find out what did everybody think of the concert. Okay, I am here with Joe Darlington, and we literally just finished the concert. What did you think?
Spectacular. Really, really interesting. It's a great way to, I'm trying to remember the last time I actually sat down and watched it all the way through, but being able to sit in a theater and focusing on it this way, I really feel like I was picking up words, lines of dialogue, and the music, obviously, like parts of the music that I was like, oh yeah, you can see how they do it, and I thought it was great, and it really kind of reminded me just how good this movie was.
Yeah, and I was saying the one thing I couldn't help but notice is it almost seemed like they muted the sound effects and the voices, and then I realized very quickly that that's because you want to hear the orchestra.
Yeah, I think in the beginning there was a lot more of a dip in the sound effects. Like there was some that just almost got silent for a while there. And I think they might have tweaked and adjusted a little bit because it suddenly got much better. But it was actually kind of distracting in the beginning, but then after that it was fine.
Did it get you psyched for No Time to Die?
It kind of did, actually. Yeah, it kind of made me realize don't let Spectre taint you. There's better movies than that. They've had some spectacular hits, so yeah, I definitely ready for No Time to Die.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
All right. I am here with Ed from James Bond Complex. You just saw the concert. What did you think of it?
Quite good. It was quite good. I'm a big fan of the Thomas Newman score, for starters. I know that's maybe not the most popular opinion out there.
I think a lot of people say that about Spectre, but I think they like SkyFall, don't they?
I hope they like SkyFall. Right. And this rendition was particularly good. I've seen Casino Royale in concert. I've seen it again in a couple of weeks. This actually might have impressed me more, just as far as a live orchestral rendition of the score. Extremely immersive. And the synth at the end, spoilers if you haven't seen it in concert, the synth at the end, that got to me.
That was almost like a Stranger Thing moment when he gets hit in the back with the knife. What was that all about?
I don't know, but it sort of made me. Now, full disclosure, I haven't seen Stranger Things.
Right.
So for me, it's more of a Silva became the 80s slasher horror movie villain. So with the synth, I thought it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. I don't know who came up with that, but that was pretty good.
It was really good. So does it get you more psyched for No Time to Die?
How can it not?
Yeah.
Watching any Bond film theatrically, so to speak, is super exciting. And No Time to Die we're T-minus 6 weeks, 5.5 weeks.
It's right around the corner.
It really is right around the corner. Super stoked. Can't wait.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
It's my pleasure. Have a good one.
I am here with none other than Bill Koenig. Bill, how are you?
I'm good. We just came from the show. It was a really great show. It was very interesting to hear, the music, it's the same music they play in the movie, but, it's being played by different people. There's little tweaks here and there that are different. And also, they toned down the sound effects. They didn't erase them, but, they were dialed back, to emphasize music, which, justifiably.
Yes.
I first noticed it very early in the movie in the opening scene where Moneypenny loses the side mirrors, because in
you
the
don't
theater,
even hear it.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Right.
But whereupon in the theater it was like this big crashing noise. So that was my first, like, okay, this is going to be a different experience.
I said the same thing. I'm like, okay, so the voices and the sound effects, and I guess that's to hear the orchestra better, right?
Yeah, yeah. And also they had captions for the dialogue.
Yes.
Which actually, there was like some things I could never make out in the theater, so I could at least, particularly with Bernice Marlowe,
Yes.
and with, to a lesser extent, Javier Bardem, there were some lines, I saw it 4 times in the theater, that there were a few lines I could never quite make out,
Right.
despite all that time. So, that's what they said. But no, it was a great show. The musicians were fantastic.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've never done this where they an orchestra syncs to a movie like that, and but no, it's great. I did think of something afterwards. So, like, for example, in the '90s, I believe it was, Martin Scorsese did a remake of Cape Fear,
Oh, yes, of course.
but they used the same Bernard Herrmann score as in the original. But it's going to be, it's different musicians. There's going to be some tweaks and stuff. So that's what this reminded me of, except it was a live performance instead of, a movie remake.
Did this get you kind of in the mood to start to get into the celebration that there's a new Bond film coming? I mean,
Yeah, to an extent, because as we record this, it's been a very active week, and when like a poster comes out, song comes out, and like I'm like trying to like sift through the news bits, and then people say, "Well, what do you think about the poster?" It's like I'm just like trying to see what's the news from the poster is,
Right.
and it's like I can't even have time to really think of it in those terms. I mean, because some people are like really intense about the poster, love it, hate it,
dissect it.
yeah, dissect it. I mean, I dissected it a little, but mostly for like, they didn't have Ana de Armas, and here's the final screenplay credit, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's not a super,
No.
hidden meanings and all that
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah. So there's just been so much going on. I haven't really had a chance to really look at it from that standpoint, and. Yeah, but no, this was a nice reminder. Oh yeah, at the end of the day, there's still a movie coming out.
Yes.
That I want to see. So,
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Well, what a weekend that was. Definitely one for the books. Epic, I would say. And by the way, I think I need a little hair of the dog that bit me. How's that for a bottle opener? Yeah, I am a little bit enjoying death right now. It was a wild weekend. Every night it was 2 to 3 in the morning. Let's break it down though. First of all, I want to apologize. I had quite a few more post-concert reviews. Unfortunately, the mic went dead. Didn't know that until after I came back. Oh yeah, there we go. But apologize for that. But let's get down to it. First of all, let's break it down. Let's talk about the concert first. The concert was amazing. And I know that's a bit of a cliche. Oh, it's amazing. It's fantastic. It truly was. And I'll tell you why. The biggest reason for me. As the concert started, I noticed right away that they had lowered the volume of the actual movie, meaning the sound effects were lowered, the voices were lowered. And I noticed that they had subtitles. And at first, you heard me mention this. I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? What's going on? Are we going to watch the movie in a suboptimal way? No, it was done so you could listen to the orchestra more. And it did. It made me concentrate so much more on the music. And I had such an appreciation for the different cues and when they come in and the timing. And it was great to obviously interview Evan Mitchell beforehand and get his perspective and then jump into the orchestra. It was also amazing to do this in such a large venue. I mean, it was fantastic. People were pretty dressed to the nines, as you saw in some of those pictures. What I loved about it also was, I talk about the Bond community so much, but this was the Bond community coming together. No drama. No discussions of, this event or that event. It was literally the here and the now. It was all about being very present and very connected to each other. And so I want to dovetail from the concert, which was great. It was like kind of the centerpiece, the why behind bringing us together, to really what was so impactful about this weekend. That is Operation Snowfall. And again, I want to thank three people specifically. I want to Edgar and Mathieu from James Bond Complex for the original idea and helping to plan the event, but also to Jeff Wybo, who really was our Sherpa, our guide, you know, of where to create these James Bond experiences throughout the entire trip. They were amazing. But I also want to thank everybody else because, my gosh, Bud West from the Bond Brain put it beautifully. He said, we literally have gone from a two-dimensional world into a three-dimensional world, and it's surreal. Meaning, what's happening right here is two-dimensional. It's great, you know, it looks like I'm talking to you, and you know, you feel that personal connection, but in reality, when you see somebody physically and you're talking to them and see their nuance and their personality and their connection to your passion about Bond and then other things in the world besides Bond, something happens. You create that connection that really does last a lifetime, and it's what people remember the most. And again, it's become sort of cliche to say this is the best part of the Bond community, but this was the best part of the weekend. Meeting these individuals, you know, meeting these podcasters and these YouTube vloggers and just people that like Bond and followers and fans and all these things, that was so heartwarming. And people were so appreciative of receiving the information and the compliments as well as giving them. And then eventually just talking about life in general. It was great. It's why we say these physical, these personal, these human events are so important for our fandom. I mean, they really do bring us together, and I think it just brings nice people together to meet other nice people, and that really was the theme. It was just nice people getting along. So Operation Snowfall was a huge success. It really raises the bar. You know, you had Operation Gatherall, Operation Snowfall. There's Operation Bourbon that's going to be going on in Quebec City pretty soon with Casino Royale. And then at the end of March, we've got Operation Barracuda, which is going to be another great personal event. But I just wanted to give you this little update. It was an amazing, amazing, so well worth getting on an airplane moment. And I want to thank everybody out there. Here are some incredible pictures I'm going to leave you with that really, I think, capture the moment of the weekend. So this has been David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. Don't hang up yet. I want you to see these pictures. Take care. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.